What if the smiling, energetic designer you've watched on QVC for decades had a story far more complicated than it looked on screen? What if her unstoppable enthusiasm, her fashion empire, and her long-running shows weren't just the result of talent, but also the outcome of near failure, relentless criticism, and sacrifices most viewers never imagined? For over 35 years, Susan Graver has been the face of QVC fashion. Millions of women filled their closets with her liquid knit tops, her easy care pants, and her colorful prints. She built a multi-million-dollar brand that outlasted celebrity designers, survived QVC's corporate shakeups, and stayed strong through every changing trend. But behind the bright studio lights and glossy catalogs lies another story: the uncomfortable truth of Susan Graver's rise. A tale shaped by family struggles, backlash over her products, and even fans who say she simply never stops talking. Today, we pull back the curtain on Susan Graver's life and career. Not just the QVC success story, but the hidden realities that made her who she is. It all began with a moment that almost didn't happen. In the late 1980s, Susan was on the verge of giving up on fashion. She was a young mother, juggling 3 kids and a tiny design business she ran with her mother-in-law, Audrey. They stitched and sold clothes to New York boutiques, but the hours were long, the money uncertain, and the exhaustion never-ending. Susan was ready to walk away. Then fate stepped in. QVC representatives walked into her Manhattan showroom. They noticed her designs, simple, colorful, wearable clothes for real women, and invited her to appear on live television. Her debut was electric. She wasn't a polished model, but she was relatable. She looked into the camera, spoke with passion about fabrics, and sold not just clothes, but confidence. Within months, QVC made a bold decision. Susan Graver would become the very first fashion designer to have her own weekly show. That single decision changed everything. From that moment forward, Susan built her brand around one simple idea: fashion for everyday women. She wasn't chasing couture dreams or runway fame. Instead, she designed tops for the office, pants that looked polished but felt like pajamas, jackets that could survive a suitcase. Her breakthrough weapon? Fabric. In time, she introduced liquid knit, a silky polyester blend that resisted wrinkles, draped beautifully, and could be thrown in the washing machine. To busy women across America, this wasn't just fabric, it was freedom. As her popularity grew, her line expanded: tops, skirts, dresses, and even a weekend collection. By the early 2000s, Susan wasn't just another vendor. She was the cornerstone of QVC fashion, often seen side by side with longtime host Pat James Dementry, laughing and hugging as they showed off new arrivals. That consistency built trust, and customers knew exactly what they were getting. But Susan's success was never just about the clothes. It was also about strategy. She went all in with QVC, no department stores, no competing retailers. By staying exclusive, she gained access to millions of loyal shoppers. And in return, QVC gave her what money can't buy: airtime. Her weekly show, Susan Graver Style, became a platform not just to sell, but to connect. She coined the term Graver Girls, read customer letters on air, and created a community that stretched beyond fashion. And then there was QVC's powerhouse tool, today's special value. A single blouse or cardigan set could bring in millions in just one day. Susan knew how to play the game. She told stories, pointed out every trim and button, and made viewers feel like they were shopping with a friend. For some, it was endearing. For others, it was a little too much, because while many adored her personality, not everyone was charmed. Susan's bubbly, high-energy style often had her talking over hosts or tripping over her own excitement. Fans described her as real and fun, but critics were less kind. On forums, you'd see comments like, first fan said, "She never stops talking." Another fan commented, "She says every button is expensive. We get it." One fan commented, "Her enthusiasm feels fake." And yet, the very traits that annoyed some were the same ones that sold clothing. She wasn't a mannequin standing quietly. She was a woman in your living room, insisting this top would make life easier. Many fans defended her with loyalty. One customer even wrote, "Yes, she talks a lot, but she has to sell, and she does. My closet is full of Graver, and it lasts forever." That tension between annoyance and loyalty became part of her brand's identity. But the criticisms went beyond personality. Over time, customers began noticing changes in her products. Fabrics didn't feel as thick as they once did. Colors were bolder, sometimes too bold. Sizing seemed inconsistent. Some items pilled or wrinkled despite promises otherwise. On consumer sites, complaints piled up. First complaint, her products have become cheaper looking. Now second complaint, I had to throw out a brand new jacket because it fell apart. Similarly, another complaint, liquid knit isn't as wrinkle-free as they claim. And then there was the pricing. What once sold for $39 as a set began, creeping up to $50 or $60 for a single blouse. Many viewers vented that her clothes were overpriced polyester. One frustrated buyer declared, "The Susan Graver line is old, high-priced, and poor quality." But just as quickly, others fired. Back in defense, loyalists praised the easy care fabrics, flattering cuts, and the fact that her clothes outlasted department store purchases. For every critic, there was a Graver girl ready to testify. This divide remains one of the most uncomfortable truths of her empire. Behind the scenes, though, Susan's story was never as glossy as it looked on screen. Before QVC, she nearly quit fashion altogether. It was her husband, Richard, and her mother-in-law, Audrey, who convinced her to keep going. The early years of scaling her brand for QVC were brutal. She went from sewing in a small studio to managing overseas factories, handling massive orders, and scrambling to maintain quality control. The pressure was relentless. At the same time, she was raising a family. While she built her career in Westchester, Pennsylvania, her kids were at home. She missed weekends, school moments, and countless late nights. Later, her daughter Jacqueline stepped in to help. But the sacrifices were undeniable. These are the parts viewers rarely saw. The exhaustion, the stress, and the fight to stay relevant. And staying relevant was no small feat. QVC has always been crowded, with competitors, celebrity names like Isaac Mizrahi, Lori Goldstein, even the Kardashians. Some shined for a moment and vanished. But Susan remained. Her strength wasn't fame, it was consistency. While others chased trends, Susan offered reliability. Women could tune in and trust they'd find pants that fit, tops that flattered, and fabrics that made life easier. She also stood out by offering inclusivity. From petites to tall, from XXS to 3X, she gave women of all sizes options. In a fashion world that often ignored older women, she filled a gap no one else did. That made her indispensable. And so, decades later, Susan's brand became more than just clothes. It became a community. Graver girls proudly posted selfies in her designs. Customers shared stories of how easy care fabrics helped them travel or saved them precious time. At 35 years on QVC, she stands as one of the longest-running designers in home shopping history. Few names, besides icons like Joan Rivers, have lasted as long. Her legacy, however, is complicated. She's an example of resilience, balancing family and business, and surviving in a cutthroat industry. Yet, she's also criticized for repetitive designs, rising prices, and a personality that splits viewers. That duality, admiration mixed with backlash, is what makes Susan Graver's story the uncomfortable truth of QVC success. Her journey wasn't easy, it wasn't smooth, and it wasn't without controversy, but it was real. She built her brand from scratch, scaled it against all odds, and outlasted a parade of competitors. Her story proves that success rarely comes without sacrifice. It rarely comes without critics. And sometimes it comes with people calling you annoying. But in the end, Susan Graver carved her name into QVC history. She gave women fashion that was practical, colorful, and, love it or hate it, distinctly her own. So the next time you see Susan bouncing with excitement on your screen, remember this. Behind that enthusiasm is a woman who almost quit, a designer who faced relentless criticism, and a businesswoman who turned airtime into a fashion empire. And that, my friends, is the uncomfortable truth behind her success.